Paper was like gold in medieval times.
Oh, not tobacco, sugar.
That everything we thought we knew about the world might turn out to be completely wrong.
Detoxification, normally associated with an intoxicating or addictive substance, usually involving a stay in a detox clinic or facility. Yet in this case, the addictive substance would not be a substance at all. It would be a melodic, deep-bassed groove of arguably hip-hop's most prolific and influential beat master. He was born Romelle Young on February 18, 1965. But by his teens, he would come to be known by his stage name, Dr. Dre. It was an ode to his family's favorite American Basketball Association player, Dr. J, who operated on the hardwood floors for the Philadelphia 76ers, and later became one of the NBA's earliest stars, and even later, a Hall of Famer who was known as much for his smooth moves on the court as he was for, at the time, his record-breaking afro, as well as his high-top Converse All-Stars. Born the first child of Theodore and Verna Young, Dr. Dre was the product of a teenage romance. His parents were the ages of 16 and 17 at the time of Dre's birth. They married in 1964. Dr. Dre's middle name actually came from his father's R&B singing group, the Romelles. In 1968, his parents divorced, and his mother later married Curtis Crayon. They had 3 more children together, 2 sons, Jerome and Tyree, both currently deceased, and daughter Shamika. In 1976, Dre attended Vanguard Junior High School in Compton, California. Compton in the 70s wasn't a very pleasant place, especially for young black males. There was rampant violence, and we were less than a decade away from the invasion of the crack epidemic. Dre was often in trouble, and the pressure to join and participate in the gang culture was strong. Verna Young decided that Compton was too dangerous for her family, and upon meeting and later marrying Warren Griffin, who she met at her new job in nearby Long Beach, California, Dre transferred to the safer suburban Roosevelt Junior High School. Their marriage in the spring of 1976 added 3 new stepsisters and 1 new stepbrother to the family. That stepbrother, Warren Griffin III, who would eventually become rapper Warren G. Dre attended Centennial High School in Compton during his freshman year in 1979, but transferred to Fremont High School in Compton, struggling academically. Dre tried to enroll in an apprenticeship program at Northrop Aviation Company, one of the largest defense contractors, employing thousands of Californians in the 80s and 90s. But again, Dre's grades made him ineligible for the program. Accepting that a professional aviation career and or college would not be in the cards, Dre devoted his focus on an active social life. His partying lifestyle lasted throughout his high school years. Dre fathered a son, Curtis, who was born December 15, 1981, the result of a brief relationship with Lisa Johnson. Curtis Young was raised by his mother when Curtis began a rap career of his own under the name Hood Surgeon, which was an ode to his famous father. Inspired by the Grandmaster Flash song The Adventures of Grandmaster Flash on the Wheels of Steel, he often attended a club called the Eve After Dark to watch the DJs and rappers performing live. Dre loved the hip-hop scene so much that he decided to try his hand as a DJ. Performing well enough to become the lead DJ at the club, Dre would later say, "It didn't even feel like a job. I was just doing what I loved."
I mean, from what I see, hip-hop on the West Coast started like 1982, 83, something like that. And I guess so-called gangster rap started at the same time because those were the first records that really made it out here, you know. I mean, Ice-T had a big influence on a lot of people out here because he actually started it to me. Ice-T and Schoolie D, actually. Schoolie D had the record PSK out at the time, and Ice-T had 6 in the morning. And these were the only records we were playing because, you know, they were saying things that we could relate to, you know.
Romelle Young, after a number of stumbles and a bevy of junior and high schools, and a failed attempt to become a production line worker at Northrop Aviation in Los Angeles, had at last found something he loved as the head DJ at the Eve After Dark nightclub in Compton. It was there that he'd meet an up-and-coming rapper by the name of N.W.A, who would later adopt the stage name DJ Yella. Dre was actually spinning records as Dr. J and wouldn't change his name to Dr. Dre until later. Dre referred to himself as the master of mixology. Through his connections at the club, Dre became part of a musical R&B group called the World Class Wrecking Crew. The group's first album was released on the independent label Crew Cut Records in the fall of 1984. The group would become stars of the breakdancing and electro hip-hop scene that would come to dominate the 80s. The group's first breakout hit was his single, Surgery, which predominantly featured Dr. Dre on the turntables and sells 50,000 copies within the Compton area. A small AM radio station in Los Angeles, 1580 on the dial, had fallen on hard times. One of the DJs at Eve After Dark was a former programming executive who had recently relocated to Los Angeles from Chicago. DJ Greg Mack had convinced the owners of the bankrupt station to let him try something new with the station, at least until the station could be sold and the new owners would take over. One of Mack's ideas was to have live DJs spin records during rush hour. Dr. Dre and DJ Yella hosted the Traffic Jam on K-Day 1580, and their unique blend of urban hip-hop and a street sensibility made K-Day the first urban hip-hop station in the nation, and the perfect launching pad for the music of Dr. Dre.
Some of the positive things that came out of it, it's to me, the fact that it existed, you know what I'm saying? Because it gave people something else to do. That everybody that's in hip hop, it gives you something else to do, you know? Everybody's not fortunate enough to be a doctor or a lawyer, you know? Everybody doesn't complete 4 years of college, you know? It gives you something else to do, and it is a job, straight up. It's a straight up job. It's not everything that you see in videos, you know? Most people in videos are fronting anyway. You know, it's not about that. It's about what goes on in here, you know? That's what it's all about. Coming in here, having some fun with your art, making some music, and putting it out there, hoping that people are gonna buy it. That's the whole fun about it. Because no matter how hard you work in the studio, no matter what you do, you don't know if people are gonna dig it, you know? For me, some of the records that I'm real pumped up on that I do are not the ones that hit, you know? You never know, and you never know when you're gonna fall off.
The year was 1984. And Dr. Dre's earliest recordings were released on a compilation of mixed tapes called Concrete Roots. One industry insider at the time remembers the music at the time was crude and uninspiring. Dr. Dre had yet to hit his musical stride or develop a distinctive style. The music was surprisingly generic, and unengaging. It's definitely for dedicated fans only. Dr. Dre had found a fairly steady income and personal satisfaction and joy as a DJ in Compton and as a mixer on K-Day in Los Angeles, all while still enrolled at Fremont High School in Compton. Dre had even managed to make the Fremont swim team, but his frequent absences and his poor academic performance made short work of his swimming career. But Dre did manage to graduate. Out of high school now and working at a local radio station, Dr. Dre continued to live at home with his siblings and his mother. At the urging of his mother to either continue his education or leave the family's Compton home, Dre decided to enroll in the Chester Adult School in Compton. Dre later enrolled in a radio broadcasting school. He relocated to the residence of his biological father, who was staying with Dre's grandparents before once again finding himself back at his mother's home in Compton. Not feeling the continued education thing, Dre decided to focus solely on his work at the club Eves After Dark. He continued to host the Traffic Jam with DJ Yella, as well as put out his mixtapes. His life would soon take a miraculous turn that would set the Compton native on a course for stardom that would forever embed his hometown as the birthplace for what would be known as gangster rap, and set Dr. Dre up as one of the most iconic figures on the American music scene. It was 1986 when Dr. Dre had met a rapper named O'Shea Jackson, who rapped under the name Ice Cube. He was seeking beats for a new label headquartered in his hometown of Compton called Ruthless Records. Ruthless was run by a diminutive and somewhat unorthodox CEO, Eric Wright, who raps under the name Eazy-E. It was during production sessions between Wright, Jackson, and rappers Arabian Prince and MC Ren that they would form the 80s whirlwind, and most agree ushered in the gangster rap era when they formed N.W.A. The moniker stood for Niggas with Attitude. The year was 1986. Compton-based former drug dealer Eric Wright, who went by the rap name Eazy-E, who had co-founded Ruthless Records with agent attorney Jerry Heller. It had been rumored the actor and comedian Gary Shandling was an original principal in Ruthless, helping to get the group off the ground, but those rumors have been unconfirmed. N.W.A. initially consisted of Eazy-E, Dr. Dre, and who later brought on his partner and Traffic Jam show host K-Day DJ Yella, on board. Dre and Yella had also both been members of the world-class Wrecking Crew. By the time of N.W.A., both Dre and Yella had become accomplished producers and added professional polished sound to Eazy's streetwise commentary. Ice Cube had been rapping with a group called CIA, but was convinced to join N.W.A., becoming its most dynamic lyrical writer. The first release on Ruthless Records came in 1987. It was released in conjunction with Macola Records, which later in that year released a compilation entitled N.W.A. and the Posse. N.W.A. was still in its developing stages and only credited on 4 of the 11 tracks. Notably, the uncharacteristically electric hip-hop record Panic Zone 8 Ball. Also, on that little celebrated compilation was a song about a key figure in inner-city neighborhoods throughout the 80s and 90s, the neighborhood kingpin, the local drug dealer. It was a catchy, somewhat comical single simply titled Dope Man. Dope Man was the first collaboration between Arabian Prince, DJ Yella, Dr. Dre, and Ice Cube. A year later, in 1988, MC Ren joined the group. The ragtag bunch of future innovators were working on their N.W.A. debut album, which had already been named. They'd call it Straight Outta Compton. It was the summer of 1988, and no group was hotter than INXS, which had blazed up the pop charts with a song called Need You Tonight. The urban contemporary charts saw an epic battle between Whitney Houston's Where Do Broken Hearts Go and the undisputed king of pop, Michael Jackson, with his hit Man in the Mirror. On the streets of Compton, the must-have items in the summer of '88 were a pair of Levi's 501 jeans and Michael Jackson's Man in the Mirror. But out of nowhere came Straight Outta Compton. Ruthless Records released N.W.A.'s Straight Outta Compton in the summer of 1988, and it caught on like wildfire almost immediately. The first release was Straight Outta Compton, a song that reflected the gritty urban realism that would become the signature and showcase the up-tempo beats and melodic riffs of Dr. Dre and DJ Yella. The song expressed an anger and frustration of urban youth that resonated with those who before the summer of 1988 hadn't heard their voices in modern pop culture. If Straight Outta Compton introduced N.W.A. to the world, then the second single grabbed them by the neck and shook them hard.
We make our records based on stuff that's happening where we live, you know.
Everybody grew up in the street. Everybody know what's going on.
Now, that's explaining how it is with us. You know, where we're coming from. Not Beverly Hills or nothing like that. That's explaining how it is in Compton.
Fuck the Police became the anthem that had grown out of a startling number of police beatings, racial profiling charges, and in some cases, deadly shootings at the hands of the LAPD and other law enforcement agencies. But the song was not without its detractors. Despite the fact that explicit lyrics kept the song from being released as a single, the group decided against a clean version. It was ranked number 417 on Rolling Stone's list of 500 greatest songs of all time. Since its release in 1988, the Fuck the Police slogan continues to influence pop culture, and today is popular on t-shirts, artwork, and has translated well into other musical genres, as we saw when popular rock group Rage Against the Machine offered a version of the song. The song Fuck the Police, containing N.W.A.'s soon-to-be trademark inflammatory lyrics, stood out in particular from many of the songs on Straight Outta Compton. It highlighted many of the tensions between black and urban youth and the police, which would just 4 years later boil over when 4 LAPD officers in the Los Angeles area's Foothill Division would respond to a call of a possible impaired driver. The stop and subsequent beating of Rodney King would be the flashpoint for the uprising and redistribution of wealth in April of 1992. Another interesting aspect of the song that will be forever immortalized in the annals of pushback against authority was the fact that black cops were called out for selling out their race. The line reads, "But don't let it be a black and a white one, 'cause they'll slam you down to the street top. Black police showing out for the white cop." Especially controversial were the areas of the song that appear to condone violence towards police and authorities in general. Lines such as, "I'm a sniper with a hell of a scope, taking out a cop or two, that's what the hell I do. And this, a sucker in a uniform waiting to get shot by me or another nigga." It would be lyrics like that that would catch the attention of the FBI, as well as the US Secret Service, which was prompted to send a letter to Ruthless Records informing the label, voicing their displeasure with the song's message. Negative publicity prompted many venues to ban N.W.A., which only served to swell their popularity and mystique. Fuck the Police was also covered by another Ruthless Records find, Bone Thugs and Harmony, as well as rock bands Dope, Soulfly, and the aforementioned Rage Against the Machine. N.W.A., with very little radio airplay, with the exception of LA's K-Day, quickly became an international sensation.
It was that I'm on this, on these things called Athletes and Entertainers for Kids, Make-A-Wish Foundation. I give a lot of donations to different organizations. So what they did is they picked my name off giving donations, and they sent me an invitation to come down there. And the invitation said, we want to invite you to the Republicans Party. I'm not no Republican, you know. So I went down there. When we went down there, as soon as I got off the plane, you had CBS, CNN, and all these people like Eazy-E, gang member, drug dealer, and all this, you know, comes down here to the president's luncheon and all that, you know. And they just blew it up. Basically what I did is I paid $1,500 for $1 million worth of press.
The first release, Straight Outta Compton, set the tone for a new sound that would become the signature sound of West Coast gangster rap. N.W.A. had served notice that this wasn't your parents' hip-hop. The second track was the controversial protest anthem that caught the attention of law enforcement groups on many continents. The third track on the album was a song that told in no uncertain terms where the rappers MC Ren, Eazy-E, DJ Yella, Ice Cube, and Dr. Dre were coming from. Arabian Prince, by year's end, had left N.W.A. to embark on a solo career. Gangster Gangster was the name of track number 3 on N.W.A.'s debut album. And while not as controversial as the second track, it was no less hard-hitting. Early incarcerations of hip-hop and rap music carried positive messages, life lessons, and snippets of knowledge almost preachy to a fault, all with a serious, positive message and a desire to portray themselves as role models for their mostly younger audiences. Yet, Gangster Gangster was bold and brash. The lyrics celebrated the gang lifestyle and were unapologetic. It's ironic that while N.W.A.'s sound and brash brand of in-your-face music would come to be known as gangster rap, they themselves never coined that phrase. To them, their music was reality rap, a phrase that unfortunately never caught on.
The secret to my longevity, I think, is the fact that I'm a perfectionist, you know, and I listen to everybody's shit, you know. I mean, even R&B, I listen to classical music sometimes, I listen to heavy metal, I just listen to everything, you know. And really, I listen to the whack shit more, you know, because I want to know what not to do, you know, the stuff that's not selling, you know. It's easy to pick up a hit record and know what people are buying, you know. I think I'm very blessed, you know. If there was somebody that was struck by luck, by God, I'm one of those people, seriously, you know, because I've had a very blessed life, straight up. I think people are limited because they're very well influenced by people that's around them or people that's in the media, you know. You see somebody criticizing something, you're not gonna do that. You know what I'm saying? I don't think like that. I'm only gonna do what I like, straight up. And a lot of people have tunnel vision. Like you may see people talking about how if they get a lot of money or something like that, they're gonna stay in the ghetto, they're gonna stay in the projects. That means if you're staying there, you're gonna allow your mother and your family to stay there also. And that's bullshit, straight up, you know? The change has to happen somewhere in your generation. You know, for my family, I'm saving money and I want my kids to start on another level. I don't want them to start in the projects. No, that means they have to build for their families. If they start at a higher level, you know, their families are gonna get better. That means your generation down the line, they're gonna have a foundation, you know, and I'm gonna set the foundation, straight up.
Straight Outta Compton earned the distinction of being one of the first albums to adhere to the new parental advisory label mandate, which due to pressure from the wife of former Vice President Al Gore, became the only actual official action to what anti-obscenity advocates argued was the corruption of our nation's youth by violent rap music. The warning label, which was purposely designed to mimic the warning label on cigarettes and alcohol, read, "Warning, moderate impact coarse language and or themes only." An irony, because it was generally accepted that violent lyrics, coarse language, and themes were the actual selling point of the album. Dr. Dre was riding a wave of success with his group N.W.A.'s first solo release, setting the hip-hop world on fire with Straight Outta Compton. Compton, which in spite of no radio airplay and no national tour dates planned due to the inability to obtain insurance and/or provide law enforcement security. In spite of all that, the group's debut release went 2 times platinum. 1 month after Straight Outta Compton was released in September of 1988, Dr. Dre oversaw the release of Eazy-E's first solo effort entitled Easy Does It. Though the album was dominated by Eazy's happy-go-lucky gangster persona, with the exception of MC Ren, who appeared on 2 of the tracks, the album was definitely in the style that was becoming Dre's trademark. As before, musical credits went to both Dre and DJ Yella, with lyrics written by MC Ren and contributions from Ice Cube.
I had been involved with a couple of the early rap records that had success. I was managing a group called the World Class Wrecking Crew through a guy named Alonzo Williams. So that's how I met Eazy. He played me a couple of tracks, played me a track called Boys in the Hood, which I thought was probably the most important record that I had heard since the beginning of rock and roll.
The success of N.W.A. had allowed Ruthless Records to expand its roster, and on the Easy Does It album, the world was introduced to the D.O.C., a scruffy-voiced rapper originally from Dallas, Texas, who would later, backed by beats from Dre, experience his own platinum solo success. Easy Does It is notable for another reason. It was the last album released solely on vinyl and cassette. Moving forward, all albums would be released on both wax and CD, and within 5 years, records and tapes would be phased out completely. In addition to the D.O.C. and Eazy's albums, an Oakland electro hip-hop group called J.J. Fad and a Los Angeles R&B singer named Michel'le in 1988 and 89, respectively, had written Dre's beats to double platinum success. If there was anything that Dr. Dre had learned from his work with non-rap artists, was that he had a flair for multiple styles and genres, and would later be quoted as saying he preferred to work with unknown acts because he relished the challenge of making stars. It was a philosophy that would serve him very well. The year was 1989. Dr. Dre, N.W.A., and Ruthless Records had transformed the center of the rap world from New York to a little-known city east of Los Angeles. Compton, California, had become the center of the rap world, largely the result of the beats of Andre Romelle Young. But Dr. Dre wasn't content with only producing gangster rap beats, and put as much pride and effort into the releases of the D.O.C.'s No One Can Do It Better and the N.W.A. posse track, The Grand Finale, neither of which had any gangster rap content, but yet would still go platinum for the label. N.W.A. was riding high off the success of its debut album Straight Outta Compton. Dr. Dre, DJ Yella, MC Ren, Eazy-E, and Ice Cube had become stars collectively and individually, in their own right. Yet, all was not as it seemed. There was a dissension among the group, and soon there would be a major defection, which would bring about another phrase that would be forever etched in the popular lexicon: rap beef. A rap beef is a feud between rappers that primarily takes place on wax.
What I think has to change for people as far as longevity is looking at people that have made it in the business. You know, Quincy Jones, people like that. That's my mentor right there, because he started at a young age the same as I did, and he's still doing his thing and having fun with it. You know, it ain't about who has the flyest car, who has the most jewelry. You know, it ain't about that. It's about saving and preparing yourself for when your shit ain't happening no more, you know? Because it's gonna happen sooner or later. You know, you never know when, you know? When Dr. Dre falls off, if and when that happens, I'm cool. I'll never have to touch another button as long as I live, straight up. I'm cool, you know? And that's what you have to think. You have to say, okay, I know I'm gonna fuck off some money, so let me put this money over here to fuck off, right? And let me save this. Let me save this. Take care of your taxes, take care of all that shit. You gotta make sure you're prepared when the shit gets thick.
It was January of 1990, and while on the surface the 5 members of N.W.A. were thick as thieves, there was a boiling, a heap of tension that had bubbled to the surface. Ice Cube had written more than half of the lyrics for Straight Outta Compton's N.W.A.'s debut album, which had gone double platinum by the fall of 1990. Ice Cube felt that he wasn't getting a fair share of the royalties. Eazy-E, who was the CEO of Ruthless, disagreed with Ice Cube. It took little time for Ice Cube to bolt Ruthless as well as N.W.A. and later that year released his own solo project on Priority Records entitled KKK's Most Wanted. In the fall of 1990, seminal rapper Ice Cube had left N.W.A. in a dispute about royalties over Straight Outta Compton. Cube released his first solo project later that year, in which he never mentioned his breakup or anything related to his time with N.W.A. But Ice Cube's former label mates weren't as kind to their former lyricist. The lyrics: "We started with 5, but yo, one couldn't take it, so now it's 4, cause the 5th couldn't make it." The video for the song poked more fun at Ice Cube, depicting the remaining members of N.W.A. in a jail cell, while an Ice Cube lookalike is released. The image was to portray Ice Cube as a snitch. Also on the EP, which later found its way onto Niggers for Life, which was the title of N.W.A.'s follow-up to Straight Outta Compton, was the song Real Niggas, which amounted to a full-blown diss of Ice Cube. In the song, Ice Cube was accused of cowardice. They questioned his authenticity, longevity, and originality. Among the lyrics: "How the fuck you think a rapper last? With your ass saying shit that was said in the past. Yo, be original, your shit is sloppy. Get off the dick, you motherfucking carbon copy. And we started out with too much cargo, so I'm glad we got rid of Benedict Arnold." It would only be later that the significance of 100 Miles and Running would be known. But it would be the last time that Dr. Dre would make an up-tempo track. From this day forward, he'd focus on mid-tempo, synthesizer-based sound. Dr. Dre dabbled in this new sound when he did the track Always Into Something, which was written as FO for Zaggin, which is Niggas for Life, spelled backwards. The year was 1991. This style of music would come to typify the West Coast and later East Coast hip-hop music scene. The G-Funk era had began. Ice Cube had refrained from any references to his former group upon the release of America's Most Wanted album. But after numerous disses from his former label mates, Ice Cube thought his unwillingness to respond had begun to affect his career. He couldn't remain silent any longer. In 1990, Ice Cube released an EP, Kill at Will. On the track, Jackin' for Beats, at the end of the disc, Ice Cube, in an epilogue, has a segment he calls I Gotta Say What's Up. Ice Cube gives shots out to his rap peers at the time, including Public Enemy, which provided production on his KKK's Most Wanted album, the Ghetto Boys, as well as beatmaster Sir Jinx and his very own Lynch Mob crew. At the end of the track, an interlude set up to be like a radio interview where fans call in and ask questions, a woman's voice is heard asking, "What about the rest of the group?" The caller is hung up on. N.W.A.'s second full-length release was 1991's FO for Ziggin. Niggers for Life spelled backwards. The disc re-established the world's most dangerous group in the face of Ice Cube's continued solo success. The album is considered by many to be Dr. Dre's finest production work and heralded as the beginning of the G-Funk era. The interlude, A Message to N.W.A, echoes the beginning of Ice Cube's song Turn Off the Radio from AmeriKKK's Most Wanted. In it, Ice Cube is first addressed by the name Benedict Arnold after the infamous traitor of the American Revolution, but then named outright in a torrent of abuse from both the group and its fans. When we see your ass, we gon' cut your hair off and fuck you with a broomstick, you punk motherfucker. MC Ren. If Ice Cube's passing blow in his Kill at Will EP was a firecracker, then his full-on attack in his next full-length release would be nuclear. In the summer of 1991 in Los Angeles, the hip-hop universe was abuzz over the feud between N.W.A and their former label mate, Ice Cube. Ice Cube had held out as long as he could, but finally, he reached his breaking point in one of the most celebrated diss records ever he unleashed from his Death Certificate album, the infamous No Vaseline. Ice Cube sampled and mocked the Message to N.W.A skit before embarking on a full-blown tirade. In a series of verses, Ice Cube verbally assaults the members of his former group, looking like straight bozos. I saw it coming, that's why I went solo. You got jealous when I got my own company, but I'm a man, and ain't nobody humping me. Ice Cube also addressed the 100 Miles and Running EP. I started off with too much cargo, dropped 4 niggas, now I'm making all the dough. Ice Cube attacked MC Ren, Eazy-E, and Dr. Dre individually, using homophobic metaphors to describe their exploitation by manager Jerry Heller, who became the target of harsh insults. Get rid of that devil, real simple. Put a bullet in his temple, cause you can't be a nigga for life crew with a white Jew telling you what to do. There was plenty of ire and backlash to go around. There were charges of anti-Semitism, racism, homophobia, and so on. Ice Cube had an association with the Nation of Islam, and this threw fuel into the fire in regards to his attacks of Heller and led to the No Vaseline track being omitted from the United Kingdom versions and later amended versions with Jewish references omitted as well. Another irony is at the same time that N.W.A and Ice Cube were beefing and being accused of anti-Semitism, the king of pop, Michael Jackson, was going through the same controversy over lyrics on one of his songs. So the gangster rappers found themselves in good company. In the fall of 1991, for hip-hop fans, there were few outlets on television that gave their growing cadre of music and black culture an outlet. At that time, even black entertainment television shunned hip-hop culture. MTV limited its presentation of rap music to an hour a day and usually very late at night. Yet, a fledgling Fox network trying to make a name for itself and having nothing to lose stumbled onto this underrepresented burgeoning market, and in the late 80s introduced a number of pioneering shows aimed to exploit the urban hip-hop market. It was the fall of 1991. One of the hottest shows on television for the growing global business that was hip-hop and rap music was the Fox network show Pump It Up. Its host was a vibrant and stylish, aspiring journalist named Denise Barnes, or D, as she preferred to be called. One of the hottest topics on Pump It Up that year was the ongoing feud between N.W.A and their estranged former lyricist, Ice Cube. Producers of Pump It Up had scheduled an interview with Dr. Dre and a separate interview with Ice Cube. As the episode in January of 1991 aired, Dr. Dre's interview appeared first. Dre was candid about what he felt caused Ice Cube to leave the group. That there was a dispute, basically, over royalties. But after Dre's interview came an edited clip of Ice Cube seeming to diss Dre. After watching the episode, Dre felt blindsided.
Officially out in N.W.A?
Yeah, N.W.A is no more as far as I'm concerned, you know, unless it's on death row. That's it.
Now, what exactly, happened? Was it just personal differences with a certain member, or?
Yeah, if you're not getting treated right in the place, you're not going to stay there. You know, that's all that was. I guess they didn't respect my talent. So now they're suffering the consequences. Eazy-E, you're dropping like a brick, boy. See ya.
So, I mean, now on the album, you talk about Eazy, you talk about Jerry Heller. When you say they don't respect your talent, what exactly, do you mean?
I mean, not really necessarily that either. I guess they took advantage of me not knowing the record business back in the day. But I know what's up with those numbers now. Can't be quick.
The weekend following the airing of the Pump It Up episode in a West Coast Los Angeles nightclub, host Dee Barnes and a production crew were filming a segment for future airing on the show. Dr. Dre, still fuming from the prior episode, spotted Barnes and confronted her. In a Rolling Stone article, reporter Alan Light picks up the story from there. He picked her up and began slamming her face and the right side of her body repeatedly against a wall near the stairway, and his bodyguard held off the crowd. After Dre tried to throw her down the stairs and failed, he began kicking her in the ribs and hands. She escaped and ran into the women's restroom. Dre followed her and grabbed her from behind the hair and proceeded to punch her in the back of the head. In response, Dre commented, "People talk all this shit, but somebody fuck with me, I'ma fuck with them. I just did it, Ain't nothing you can do now by talking about it. Besides, it ain't no big thing. I just threw her through a door." On January 27th in 1991, at a club on Sunset Boulevard, Dr. Dre attacked Fox television host Dee Barnes for what he felt was a slight in covering the feud between N.W.A. and Ice Cube. It marked a turning point in their beef, which had gone from wax to the streets. Dre's label mates stood fast behind their beatmaster and de facto leader. Dre was the golden goose, and few in his inner circle dare cross him. Bitch deserved it. MC Ren. Yeah, bitch had it coming. Eazy-E. Dr. Dre held nothing back in explaining his actions.
I don't ever feel the responsibility to impress people with my music. I do feel like I gotta get in and do my music to the best of my ability, And I feel like I'm my worst critic, If I'm not digging it, it ain't the shit, So the critics out there can basically kiss my ass straight up because they know nothing about what goes into this. They're just people with a 9-to-5 behind a fucking typewriter and a CD player listening to it and critiquing it. You can't criticize something that somebody's working real hard on because that can shatter their whole shit, It might be a hit record in them, That's why shit I be seeing in the Source magazine and them critiquing records and, nobody can critique my shit unless you've done half of the stuff that I've accomplished. You know what I'm saying? Nobody can critique the shit, There's nothing saying that I'm gonna make a fucking smash every time I go in the studio. That's what I set out to do, but like I said before, you don't know what the public is gonna dig. So all the critics just need to shut the fuck up until they do or try to do the shit that they're criticizing.
Following the Dre assault on talk show host Dee Barnes, the beef between N.W.A. and what would seem like all of hip-hop, at least for now, went back on wax, where it belonged. The East Coast, feeling neglected and looking for a way to get back to relevance, saw the Barnes assault as their chance. A little-known rapper by the name of Tim Dog fired the first shot in what would escalate into what came to be known as hip-hop's Civil War, a beef between the East and West Coast for rap supremacy. Tim Dog's Fuck Compton was an uninspiring track, but the message was clear. brothers on the East Coast were none too happy about the center of the rap universe no longer being east of the Mississippi. The song criticized Dr. Dre for beating up D from Pump It Up. Criticism of Dr. Dre beating up D Barnes would last for several years. Eventually, Dre would leave Ruthless Records, and Eazy-E, who first suggested Barnes deserved the beating, would later diss Dr. Dre and Death Row Records, his new label. Eazy criticized the Barnes incident on songs, including Real Motherfucking G's, It's On, and What Would You Do? Even Dre's own protege, Eminem, would criticize the incident years later on his 1999 duet with Dre entitled Guilty Conscience. The song is an interplay between Slim Shady and Dre as the two sides of people's consciousness, Dre being the good conscience, while Slim Shady raps, "Are you gonna take advice from somebody who slapped D Barnes?" Another Dre understudy, The Game, also mentioned the incident on his Doctor's Advocate album in the title track. The Barnes incident was rated number 37 on Spin Magazine's 100 Sleaziest Moments in Rock. 1991's Niggas for Life would be the group's final album. After Dr. Dre, the DOC, and Michel'le departed from Ruthless to join Death Row Records, and allegations over Eazy-E being coerced, signing away their contracts, however, retaining a portion of their publishing rights. A bitter rivalry ensued. Dr. Dre began the exchange with Death Row's first release, 1992's Fuck With Dre Day, and its accompanying video featured a character named Sleazy E, who ran around desperately trying to get money. The insults continued on The Chronic with Bitches Ain't Shit. Eazy-E responded in 1993 with the EP It's On, 187'em, Killer, and the tracks Real Motherfucking G's and It's On. Eazy-E accused Dr. Dre of being a homosexual, calling him a she-thing. And the music video for Real Motherfucking G's showed promotional stills of Dr. Dre wearing makeup and a sequined jumpsuit. The photos dated back to Dr. Dre's world-class Wrecking Crew days, when such fashion was common among West Coast electro hip-hop artists prior to N.W.A.'s popularization of gangster rap. After Eazy-E's AIDS-related death on March 26th of 1995, all bad blood between the group ceased. Dr. Dre and Ice Cube would later express their re-evaluated feelings to their old friend on 1999's What's the Difference and Chin Check, 2000's Hello, and 2006's Growing Up. Having both parted with Ruthless Records on bad terms, tensions between Ice Cube and Dr. Dre eased on the other hand. Ice Cube made a cameo appearance in Dr. Dre's Let Me Ride video in 1993. The two recorded the hit song Natural Born Killers for Snoop Dogg's 1994 short film and soundtrack, Murder Was the Case. MC Ren appeared on Dr. Dre's 1999 album, The Chronic 2001. And the three remaining N.W.A. MCs would reunite for Hello on Ice Cube's 2000 album, War and Peace Volume 2, the Peace Disc. Featuring the hook, I started this gangster shit, and this is the motherfucking thanks I get. The West Coast and gangster music scene had, however, fallen out of the spotlight since the death of Tupac Shakur in 1996, and it was only after Dr. Dre's successful patronage of Eminem's and Dr. Dre's ensuing comeback album, The Chronic 2001, that the genre and its artists would regain the national spotlight. 2000's All-Star Up in Smoke tour would reunite much of N.W.A. and Death Row families, and during the time spent on the road, Dre, Eminem, Ice Cube, MC Ren, and guest star Snoop Dogg began recording in a mobile studio. It was a comeback album entitled Not These Niggas Again, was planned, and would include DJ Yella, who had not been present on the tour. However, due to busy and conflicting schedules, as well as the obstacles of coordinating 3 different record labels, Priority, No Limit, and Interscope, obtaining the rights to the name N.W.A, and endorsing the whole project to gain exclusive rights, the album never materialized. Only 2 of the tracks from these sessions would ever be released. Chin Check, with Snoop Dogg as a member of N.W.A from 1999's Next Friday soundtrack, and Hello from Ice Cube's 2000 album War and Peace Volume 2, The Peace Disc. Both songs would appear on N.W.A.'s remastered and re-released Greatest Hits. There would also be partial reunions on Set It Off from Snoop Dogg's The Last Meal, which featured MC Ren and Ice Cube, as well as former Death Row inmates, the DOCs, and The Shit from his 2003 album Deuce, which featured MC Ren, Ice Cube, Snoop Dogg, The 6'2", Dr. Dre, and DJ Yella were present in the studio for this latter song. In addition to Greatest Hits initially released by Priority in 1996, Capitol and Ruthless Records jointly released the N.W.A. Legacy Volume 1. It was in 1998. It was an album that contained only 3 songs from the actual group, but various solo tracks from the 5 members. The success of the album prompted a second volume, the N.W.A. Legacy Volume 2, 2 years later. It emulated the format of its predecessor, containing only 3 genuine N.W.A. tracks and many solo efforts by the crew members. In 2007, a new Greatest Hits package was released entitled The Best of N.W.A, The Strength of Street Knowledge. New Line Cinema representatives announced to Entertainment Weekly's Hollywood Insider blog that N.W.A.'s story is in development to become a feature film in 2012. According to the Internet Movie Database, the script was researched and written by filmmaker S. Lee Savage and radio veteran Alan Winkus, who worked closely with Eazy-E's widow, Tamika Wright. Wright, Ice Cube, and Dr. Dre will act as producers of the film. As of October of 2010, a director had not been chosen. However, the producers are reportedly seeking someone on par with 8 Mile director Curtis Hanson. The cast has yet to be disclosed. To date, MC Ren and DJ Yella have not commented on whether or not they will be involved in the production. Casting calls begin in the summer of 2010. There have been rumors that Little Eazy-E will be playing his father, Eazy-E, and Ice Cube's son and fellow rapper O'Shea Jackson II, aka OMG, will be playing his father as well. For Andre Romelle Young, the future looks bright. His Beats line of headphones have taken the music world by storm, and his mark on the music industry is etched in history. Time will only tell what surprises this legend has in store. For Vision Black Entertainment, I'm Theron Cal.